and the times in which they live. There is a spiritual dimension to landscape which gifted photographers can suggest and gifted writers can evoke. Often, I am mesmerized by the descriptions of landscapes, towns, and cities in fiction. Obviously, the novels of Dickens, Hardy, Lawrence come to mind. It is difficult to name any novels of distinction that are not firmly imbued with place. And if the setting is antagonistic to the spirit, as in our environmentally devastated landscapes and cityscapes, this is a part of the story. Bearing witness. Most of the world's population, through history, have not been able to bear witness for themselves. They lack the language, as well as the confidence to shape the language for their own ends. They lack the education, as well as the power that comes with education. Politically, they may be totally disenfranchised, simply too poor and devastated by poverty and the bad luck that comes with poverty, like an infected limb turning gangrenous. They may be suppressed or terrorized into silence. My most intense sympathies tend to be for those individuals who have been left behind by history, as by the economy. They are all around us, but become visible only when something goes terribly wrong, like a natural disaster or an outburst of madness and violence. Particularly, I have been sympathetic with the plight of women and girls in a patriarchal society. I am struck by the ways in which weakness can be transformed into strength and vulnerability into survival. If the writer has any obligation, and this is a debatable issue, for the writer must remain free, it's to give voice to those who lack voices of their own. Self-expression. The self is, at its core, radically young, even adolescent. Our selves are forged in childhood, burnished and confirmed in adolescence. That is why there are great, irresistibly engaging writers of adolescence. For instance, Henry David Thoreau, Emily Dickinson, Ernest Hemingway, in his early short stories set in northern Michigan. Since I began writing fairly seriously when I was very young, my truest and most prevailing self is that adolescent self, confronting an essentially mysterious and fascinating adult world like a riddle to be solved or a code to be decoded. The essence of the adolescent is rebelliousness, skepticism. It is very healthy, a stay against the accommodations and compromises of what we call adulthood, particularly middle age. Propaganda. Moralizing. Once, it was not considered gauche for literary writers, Stowe, Upton Sinclair, Tolstoy, Eliot, Dickens, to address the reader more or less directly, and to speak of moral predilections. Now, since the revolution in sensibility generally associated with the early decades of the 20th century, which we call modernism, it is virtually impossible to indicate a moral position in any dogmatic way. Ours is still, overall, an age of irony, indirection, obliquity. As Emily Dickinson advises, speaking of her own credo, tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies. And Virginia Woolf in these thrilling, liberating words. Art is being rid of all preaching, things in themselves, the sentence in itself beautiful. Why all this criticism of other people? Why not some system that includes the good? What a discovery that would be, a system that did not shut out. Still, most of us who write hope to evoke sympathy for our characters, as George Eliot and D.H. Lawrence prescribed. We would hope not to be reducible to a political position, still less a political party, though writers in other parts of the world